Hello, everyone. So it seems that the subject of canceling student loan debt has taken the internet by storm and really just forced itself into a lot of different conversations on social media and whatnot, with Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer saying that Joe Biden can and should eliminate some, keyword, some of student loan debt through executive order, and he should prioritize this as he becomes the next president. Now, just first and foremost, let me highlight that, you know, we know who Chuck Schumer is. We know, what his ideals are. His don't align with ours, obviously. So when he brings up subjects like canceling student loan debt, it's never to go all the way. It's never to completely erase the problem. He just wants to make, you know, kind of minor fixes. He says it's eliminate 50,000, right, for every student borrower. There are plenty of student borrowers that have more than $50,000 student loan debt, but we'll get into that in just a second. But what this has done is it's created a conversation that's not really talked about as much as I would like. This subject here in particular is one that I'm really passionate about, that being because I'm a college student. I have student loan debt. I'm accruing student loan debt as I make my way through higher education in pursuit of a job, in pursuit of success. And it constantly feels like I'm being punished for this, right? And I'm sure many other college students feel the same way I do. Now, in this video, I would try to explain to you guys why student loan debt should exist, why college should be free of expense, and why kind of try to piece together the disconnect between people that say that the student loan debt should be canceled and people that don't say it. So I came across this really interesting article on refinery29.com. And let me just, who wrote this article very quickly? By Wizzy Kim. Wizzy Kim, I hope I said that right, because it's a magnificent article describing how people feel about this specific issue. And so I'm going to read off the parts that I think are the most important, and then we're going to discuss not just this, but this entire issue as a whole. So just bear with me for a second because I'm going to read off quite a bit. So it says, those opposed to canceling student debt claim that doing so would create resentment in people who spent a long time paying off their own college debt, who might have prioritized jobs that pay well over jobs they'd enjoy, or delayed milestones like home ownership, marriage, or having a child because of their debt. They had to sacrifice and suffer, and it rankles them that current and future college grads might not have to sacrifice and suffer in the same way. And then I'll skip down a little bit here. For some, it means subjecting others to whatever they were subjected to, talking about why they don't think student loan debt should be canceled. No matter how difficult and cruel, if you had to walk uphill both ways to get to school back in your day, that should be the price for your children too. For others, fairness is about opportunity. Because you had to walk uphill both ways to get to school, you think it's only fair to use your experience to advocate for a public bus system for your children. The latter group believes in a society where people are all working toward a future where everyone is on more equal footing, and where those who aren't wealthy can get a college degree without being saddled with $30,000 or more in debt. Student debt relief is correcting what was unfair from the get-go. Education is so expensive as to be out of reach. Education that is so expensive as to be out of reach for many. While some argue that going to college is a choice, it is an undeniable fact that it feels like a requirement even for entry-level positions in professional industries. And let me just, before I continue reading, today it is hard to get a good job without a college degree. That's a fact. And even with a college degree, it's still sometimes difficult to get a good job, but I digress and let me continue here. Perhaps most importantly, canceling student debt doesn't negatively affect those who've already paid off their student loans. Insisting that other people pay off their loans in full, no matter how much of a hardship, is demanding suffering for the sake of suffering. By that logic, will those who survive COVID-19 be angry about people who can get vaccinated from it? And it continues to say, another thing to consider is that the benefits of those being forgiven for student debt could be enormous. A study by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that people who've had some of their student debt discharged experience higher income growth and earn higher income by about $3,000 over a 3 year period following discharge compared to those that haven't had debt discharged. They were also more likely to move to different areas and change jobs more frequently. Having less debt, understandably, gave them more flexibility and opportunities. Forgiveness leads to a significant improvement in their financial conditions and better labor market outcomes. That's very important. Okay? And while the critics of student debt cancellation argue that the loss in student loan payments would harm the economy, it's a loss that could be offset by collecting more taxes from the wealthiest Americans. American billionaires added over $600 billion to their wealth this year. Globally, the 500 richest people have become $1.2 trillion richer during 2020. Instead of making millions off Americans who just want to go to college, get a job, and afford the kind of life that their parents were able to, feel trapped for decades by mountains of debt, we have the chance to relieve their burden and see how they can thrive. Suffering, after all, does not make anyone stronger, it just makes them hurt. Why not prevent that if we can? Suffering isn't a virtue, preventing other people's suffering is. Round of applause to the person that wrote this article. It's a truly wonderful article. I had a joy reading it. Now, let's get into this. There's this kind of revanchist, dare I say, movement that's happening as I speak in terms of canceling student debt. For some reason, I'm not going to speak on the politicians at the moment. I'm going to get into them in a minute. But for some reason, just the regular people, regular Americans, your fellow Americans, our fellow Americans, they feel as, or some of them, not all of them. Now, keep in mind, there's a group that feel as though that if the lives of other people are improved, they will somehow be slighted. That it's somehow unfair to them. It's not fair that they get to have their student debt canceled, but I had to pay mine off. The fact that you had to pay yours off should be the leading determining factor that allows you to come to the point where you say, you know what? Other people shouldn't have to suffer this way. Other people shouldn't have to go through what I went through. Other people should have a better life, right? And they will. And this will stimulate the economy. And allow me to read off another quick fact for you guys. The policy of debt cancellation would boost real GDP by an average of $86 billion to $108 billion per year. Over the 10-year forecast, the policy generates between $861 billion and $1,083 billion in real GDP. Now, Professor Richard Wolff is a person that he's an economist, but he's a very intelligent person, a person that I like to look to when it comes to these kinds of issues and many other issues relating to the economy. But he pretty much hits the nail on the head perfectly when it comes to this issue of canceling student debt. So I'm going to read off a couple of quotes of his that you may resonate with, that I know I resonate with. He says, capitalism creates and blocks the solutions to these types of problems. So it creates the problem and it blocks the solution, right? And he also says, our future depends on the quality and quantity of our labor force. And that couldn't be any more true. And what this system that we live in does at this moment is it plagues our labor force and it cripples them. And it makes life harder for them to succeed. As I just read out to you the facts, if we were to cancel this student debt and make lives easier for our working people, for our labor force, the economy would in turn experience a boom and things would become better as a result of it. But this country that we live in, it's so profit driven, and the people at the top 1%, they have this insane profit motive about them. And there isn't just one reason why this is so bad. There's a culmination of issues that led us to this point. You can say, well, people aren't making enough money, so they can't afford college. You can say that the expenses of college is too high. You can say that these universities are paying too much money to these top university officials. There's a lot of different reasons as to why, you know, this huge problem has been created, and it needs to end. It needs to end. It needs to end very quickly. We had a person that wanted to end it in the right way, not these half measures that Chuck Schumer is proposing, but one that went all the way and went even further. However, you know, he's not going to get his shot, unfortunately, but hopefully one day we'll get somebody that will. And it makes me hard. It makes it hard for me to believe that, you know, a guy like Joe Biden will provide the necessary relief that so many of these Americans, millions of Americans need. They're struggling with student loan debt because he helped create the problem with the bankruptcy bill. So it's a slippery slope. It's going to be a hard-fought battle, and I expect issues like these to rattle social media again and again and again. And we have to keep pounding. We have to keep pounding, and we have to keep going. You know, in a battle of ideas, we can't lose. The populist left won't lose in a battle of ideas. We have the people on our side, and we have to know that, and we have to recognize that. And these are the issues that need to be at the forefront when we're campaigning and we're talking about things and we're trying to get change, because a lot of people resonate with this and they'll get behind this and they'll support you. So with that being said, thank you for watching. I'm Maliek Gordon. Peace.